Barak Shalom, everyone. It's Out the Box Kingdom Talk with me, Out the Box Kingdom. I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful Yom. We're on the first Yom on a new Shabuah. For those that don't know, Passover or the week of unleavened bread, which some people know as Pesach, is almost officially done, which is on the 21st of Aviv. Anyway. But I wanted to come on here because I just want to kind of have I ain't gonna say a loose talk, but just kind of want to meet some people where they at right now. Because I know when I come on here, I'm always, just giving the word. And I really feel like it's still the heart of the Father, because unfortunately, the assembly or so-called believers have made this walk so hard for those that are really in search of Yahusha HaMashiach. They want to believe in Yahusha. They know that the only way to the Father is through Yahusha. But then when you're talking about faith and all that stuff, the word faith throws things off. But when faith actually means belief, you believe what you believe, right? And so when you believe in something, you become obedient to that thing. You become, you put your trust in it. You've defended with all kinds of facts, right? But technically, if you put it in that terminology, that's what the putting on the armor of Abba Yahuah is you wearing the breastplate of the breastplate of obedience, right? And so there's a couple of things I saw in my word, and I was really been dealing with me, because I like Old Testament, but he had to bring me forth into the New Testament because, just a reminder, I'm filled with the ruach hakodesh. I'm filled with his ruach, and so I'm no longer under the curse of what comes with Torah when you disobey it. You know what I'm saying? I'm more so in the new covenant as in obedience, right? Because if you think about it, before or after the fall of man, when it came to Abraham, guess what? The Torah was not even written, but Abraham was known as a man of belief. And there is a part in scripture where they was talking about everyone that operated in a belief. And because of their belief in Abba Yahuah, they were obedient to his word. When he spoke a word to them, even though they had moments where, we know that Abraham lied. We know that Abraham created Ishmael with Hagar, listening to his wife, Sarah. But however, he didn't get struck down. He didn't get killed. But I would still consider Abraham a friend because he was a man of belief. You know what I'm saying? And so I just kind of want to kind of share with you my story a little bit. I was not... If y'all think, when y'all come on here on this channel, if y'all think I was raised in the assembly, I was not. I definitely was not. My father, I never met him. My mom was a single parent, but my grandmother and my family helped her raise me. And the only example I had, my grandma could not read. But however, she was a woman of prayer. Like, she would get in her corner and she would be silent and she would just be praying. I would see her be crying, and she couldn't drive or anything because she had, disabled. But she had this strong belief. Even when she had people coming up against her enemies, my grandma did not curse her enemies. She still welcomed them in her home. That it says in scripture that you give your enemies a drink of water. It's your actions that's going to convict them. You know what I'm saying? And so regardless of what they was doing to her, she never did any backlash or retaliation towards them. She never cursed them. She never went to witch doctors or anything like that. But she had a trust in Abba Yahuah that everything she had gone through, that he was going to deliver her from it. And so she, and that's how she operated. Even though there was some things that she was taught that her ancestry, our ancestors of certain things, not knowing it was witchcraft to try to protect your home. But other than that, she would sing hymns. She loved it when I could read the scripture to her, and she was just that person. She had definitely servitude. And so when it came down to me, for some reason, when we were doing the traditional Sunday, I hated going to church. For some reason, I felt like it was performance. I felt like the only thing that I would always look forward to when I would go to the building was worship, like the music. Other than that, when a pastor get his little robe on and do his little performance and I said this, you done lost me already, right? And so, but however, Abba had a plan for my life because, and I used to sit up there and be upset a little bit. Why wasn't I raised in the assemblies and stuff like that? But now I'm grateful that I didn't have a pastor as my father, and my mother wasn't the first lady. I'm actually glad, because I would have been heavily indoctrinated with religion versus intimacy. And I would have struggled just like you see a lot of these, the church children. They're the ones that really rebel because they see their parents being hypocritical to the word versus those that are out here in the streets. And it's crazy that more people that's out here in the streets are more obedient to the Torah than it is the people that are supposed to be teaching the Torah. You know what I'm saying? And so when it came to my walk or whatever, Abba began to deal with me. And that's why I was, sharing with people on TikTok. I was like, hey, like, this is a process. Even before I began to read the word for myself, I began to deal with me, as in, like, I used to curse. I used to go to the club. I didn't drink or smoke or anything like that. But I would have one partner, but guess what? I was sleeping with them outside wedlock. They weren't my husbands. You know what I'm saying? So, and there's no shame. Right? It's no shame of something I did not know, because you're just going by what you've been taught. You know what I'm saying? So when I got baptized the first time, I wasn't reading the word, but I began to somewhat change my music a little bit. I still was doing a little bit of, let's just say white magic, but come to find out, it's still witchcraft. You know what I'm saying? So that was like carrying the pendulums for protection, believing that certain candles brought you money. Let's see, tarot cards or angel cards, all that stuff, like the new age practices, because I didn't know any better. But once again, like I said, he was still dealing with me. So when it came to, what's the first thing I would dealt with me on? The first thing he started dealing with me about is the whole clubbing thing, because the clubbing atmosphere started getting dangerous, and the amount of money you paying, $5, is it worth your life? So that was the first thing, because that was my first time literally seeing where people, when they turned the music, where people's face would change, and I was literally seeing demons in these people's faces, and it was fighting with each other. And it was that music, the rep your set type of music. It went from chill, laid back 90s music to that rep your set, and next thing you know, violence broke loose, and I could just see like demon of rage and murder on their faces. I ain't never seen nothing like it, and I was like, my life is worth more than $5. So that was the first thing that I would begin to deal with me about. So I was like, for all that, I'll party in my own house. Did I invite people to my house and party? No. When I said I'll party in my own house, I'll play my own music in my house and party by myself. So I stopped going to the club. Then I started going through that separating part, set apart process from toxic people, because I just realized I was not like them. I wasn't there like that. So I started just minding my own business and connecting with people that I felt like I could be more like myself, that's more reserved and they have goals in life and stuff like that. And so he was dealing with me with that. Then it was that whole belief thing. I didn't know I was hearing Abba's voice. And the first thing, one of the things he told me, which was random, was like, go to flight attendant school. I didn't know that was like his voice. You know what I'm saying? Because remember, I didn't know him. I wasn't reading my word, but he was talking to me, right? He was getting my attention. And so I was like, well, shoot. And I called my mom. I said, I'm going to flight attendant school. So once again, like with Abraham, he heard, and it was like random. It's like, okay, well, I'm going. You just believe that there's something good for you, the reason why you're going. You know what I'm saying? And so went to flight attendant school, got approved for it, got, away from family for a while and got to meet different people and didn't know about prophesying over your own life. So I was like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to have perfect attendance. I'm going to make above 3.0 GPA and I'm going to get hired on the spot. And exactly what I said came to pass. I did get hired on the spot. I did have perfect attendance. I did have a grade point average above 3.0. I excelled abundantly and it just fell into place. So that was all Abba Yahuah. Once again, I did not know him, right? But I was hearing him. But however, there was still other things that Satan was trying to still lure me in, which was still believing in going to psychics and mediums and stuff like that, giving them my money, putting money in the kingdom of darkness. But like I said, Abba has a plan for everything. So even when I was in Atlanta, it was still that tugging of Satan trying to get my attention and Abba, right? But Abba would still introduce me to people to try to introduce his word to me, and things got hard when I was in Atlanta. And what happened? I almost lost my job as a flight attendant. I was really fighting with that. Would rarely have money. Then something happened at the post office where they swiped my card twice. And because of that, I wasn't able to pay my rent and was on the verge of being evicted. Then my car, having $4,000 left, broke down on me. I was so hurt. And so when I went to try to get approved, try to take it in as a trade between Nissan and Kia, I was having a hard time with that. So I went to go to Drive Time, and Drive Time took my car. But see, Drive Time was trying to give me a bad deal. And I heard the voice of Abba Yahuah say, go look at your thing and take the car back. I did not know, once again, that was Abba's voice. But I looked at it and I said, oh, something ain't right about this. And so I was like, I called my best friend at that time, a battle buddy of mine that I served in the military with. And he was like, okay, we're going to take the car back. We'll try to help you find something. But that night I had a dream, and it was Abba showing me that Nissan was going to call me and told me I was going to get approved for a new vehicle. Because they was trying to at first sell me a used vehicle, and I was like, I don't want a used vehicle. That's what that car was. I want a brand new vehicle that I'm the only one, whatever happens to it, I've been the only one that put the mileage and stuff on it, right? And so sure enough, the next day, exactly at 12 o'clock, Nissan called me and said, Miss Diggs, which, my maiden last name, you've been approved for a new vehicle. And when that happened, I went and picked out the car I wanted. I wanted a black car with black interior. And unfortunately, the guy screwed me over on the deal. And I didn't find out until later on. But the whole point is I got the car that I wanted. I wasn't, even though I was, that person that was somewhat here and there believing in tarot cards and stuff like that. Around that time, I wasn't even messing with it. At this time, Abba was really getting my attention. So I wasn't that person that believed in law of attraction and manifestation mess. I wasn't even that deep in it. All praise to the Most High for that. So, and so I ended up getting that car, not knowing that Abba was getting ready to give me that new car so I can move back home. Things got hard, so I decided to move back home. And right around this time, I was still dealing with me. I still have not read his word yet, but I'm still hearing his voice. Felt like I was going through a Samuel situation. He hadn't called me by my name yet, So Moved back home with my mom, and the company I was working for, the flight attendant company, I just realized that they didn't care about me as a person. They cared about numbers in their flight. So I ended up letting them terminate me, and I started school. I started going to school, and then right around this time, I then realized what I wanted to go to school for, and it was psychology. Because when I graduated high school and when I got out the military, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to go to school for. But it wasn't until around that time I was like, I want to go to school for psychology. So ended up signing up for University of Phoenix and got my associates and my bachelor's there. And within that time period of me letting my job go from being a flight attendant, I was done with dating too. I had got frustrated with dating. And once again, Abba was dealing with me. And I said, I'm worth more than somebody wanting to keep me a secret. They just think I'm worthy enough to sleep around with and do things with them. But I can't meet your family. Like, what's wrong with you? You're not trying to get married or anything. And I said, he began to deal with me about my worth. So around that time, Abba began to deal with me about becoming celibate for like a whole year, just celibate until I get married. So I'm sitting there and I didn't know prayer was a casual conversation. And within that time period, I was just like, you know what, apparently I'm doing something wrong when it comes to this whole dating thing. So Abba, you pick the person for me. And I pray that this person is my husband, and so I had started like deleting a lot of my dating profiles and stuff like that. And then that's when I heard him tell me go on Plenty of Fish. And I was like, and I ain't telling nobody to go on Plenty of Fish. Let the ruach lead you where your spouse at. But in my case, he told me to go on Plenty of Fish. And I went on Plenty of Fish. So I went on Plenty of Fish and made my profile. And it was so funny because he was like, go on Plenty of Fish. And I was like, what? Go on Plenty of Fish? I said, ain't that an old people's dating website? I didn't know I was responding to him. But I went on there anyway. And my husband happened to be the third profile. And I just said a friendly hello. But I just kind of like was so fed up with dating. I was like, he probably like Caucasian girls or something. Like, he might not even message me, but I didn't know I was dealing with inferiority and, low self-esteem. But lo and behold, when I forgot all about it, I got a notification on my phone. It was him, and we ended up talking. And so what I'm saying is Abba was talking to me with his voice and through dreams, right? So he literally showed me that the guy that I was dating before I met my husband was not my husband. I literally had a dream about my husband in the bed with the guy that ain't my husband. So that's how I knew I was able to let that relationship go when I went off to flight attendant school. Because Abba had already given me the answer. Actually, a lot of the relationships I was in before my husband, Abba was giving me confirmation of what they were doing. If they was cheating, was lying, and next thing you know, the relationship was going down the drain. And I was okay with it because I knew the truth then. And so I met my husband. We had our date and everything. And Abba confirmed that he was my husband, right? But mind you, once again, I was not walking with Yahuah, with Abba. I was not reading his word. But I knew for sure, there was a belief there that this is more likely my husband. And he confirmed that years later, because me and my husband started dating, and he got orders to go to Washington State, and I ended up going out there before him. And this is when Abba, I ran because I had got a prophetic word and I ran. But then in the place that I ran to, like Yonah, I got humbled very quickly. And I realized that you can't live this life without the Most High. It's going to tear you apart and it's going to destroy you, right? And so warning came before destruction. My neighbors that because my mom had moved out to the Washington State with me, and one of our neighbors, I didn't know about prophets, I didn't know about tongues or none of these things, or being spiritually dead and all this stuff. So I'm putting all my trust in man's philosophy, man's teaching, man's way of getting treatment for your body, all this other stuff. So I was on birth control and all that. I was taking things in my own hands versus Abba. You know, I was up there watching television, but television was my God at one time. That and shopping. And I can admit that because I would just watch TV all day. I would sleep with the television on, and I would be watching that darkness. Like I would find myself gravitating towards horror movies. I'll be watching a lot of killing shows. Like never thought about killing anybody because I was in the military and I was like, y'all can't convince me to kill nobody. But I love like solving the crime type of ordeal. So I'll watch like Snapped and not How to Get Away with Murder, but like the real documentary type shows. Like the Investigation Discovery Channel was my channel. Okay. So imagine you're sleeping with all that dark stuff playing in your ear and it's going in your eye gates, right? So around that time, then I was in grad school getting ready to try to go to school for forensic psychology, you know, because I was just interested in psychology and solving. But that's a dark field to go into, right? So the whole time I'm doing this, mind you, I have a Bible in my room and I'm just hearing the voice of Abba saying, read your word, read your word, read your word. And instead of me reading my word, guess what I did? I picked up my cell phone and be on Facebook and all that. I just ignored them. So I was like, well, you tell me to read the word, but you're not telling me where to start at. So I go outside and Abba uses my neighbors, this married couple, and the husband was like, yeah, I don't usually do this, but I just hear Abba Yahuah telling me that the young man that you're with is your husband. You need to be praying for him. You're his prayer warrior. And I was like, well, shoot, I don't even pray for myself. You talking about pray for him. You know what I'm saying? I said that in my mind, but I was like, okay. Like I'm looking at him strange because I don't know how to receive it. And he said, oh yeah, you've been asking Abba where to start. He's been telling you to read your word and you've been asking him where to start. And he said to tell you to start at John. Or should I say Yehukanan, right? So did I take heed to the instructions? No. So the warning came and then the destruction came because I didn't take heed. And so it started with, I just had a breakdown one day. I was like, I didn't come out here to work as a slave. And I cried. I said, Abba, you got to do something. The moment I cried out to him, the enemy let me know he was peed off with me. Because when I say he came in like a flood, the first thing he went after was my mind. And then he started attacking my body like how he did Job. The body, your currency, all that stuff that you just magnified and thought you had it all together. I was just losing everything. I almost lost my car. But my mom had the money to get my car back. I was just going to let that go too. I was like, it is what it is. I thought that I was getting ready to meet my maker for real. But Abba sent the messenger to say it was not my time yet. And it was more work for me to do here on the arrest. And so it was so bad. I'll be like in my room. I couldn't even tell you what my name was. My mind just felt like it was gone. Like the enemy was attacking me with paranoia, fear. Had me to the point that I was scared to eat things with salt in it because I thought I had high blood pressure. And then they had this fake blood pressure app that was making me think that my blood pressure was high when it really was not. Then I was having these palpitations and chest pain. Like I thought I was getting ready to die of a heart attack. And I would go to the hospital. They couldn't find nothing wrong with me. I was going through spiritual warfare, and it was like I was in the lion's den because Washington State is very known for witchcraft and dark things. It's got the highest rate of depression. So here I am going through my process in a land I thought was a land of promise for me, and it ended up being a promise of the lion's den. That everything that I had involved myself in was coming against me. and it felt like a flood. So all I could do was turn back to Abba Yahuah. So one day he told me to go to the same couple and his wife. She was cancer survivor, and she just began to pray with me. And I didn't know what tongues were, but she began to pray for me in her heavenly language. And she was just saying I was spiritually dead, and that put so much fear in me. It was ridiculous. She said, but this is how you can get your and she gave me The Power of Speaking in Words by Joyce Myers. And so we know what Joyce Myers is, but Abba had to use Joyce Myers' ministry at that time, along with Elevation Church, to give me the baby steps I needed to lead me back to him. So we got to start somewhere, but you're not meant to stay in that place. You're meant to go deeper than where you are, right? So at that time, I was real fond of Joyce Meyer because she was a woman. She was a pastor. I'd never seen a woman pastor before. She was comical. So she drew me, the way she taught the word at that time. And so I ended up getting her Everyday Living Amplified Bible. And I remember going straight to the back first. And I read that rededication prayer. And next thing you know, I started in Yahuwah. And when I said the enemy had attacked my mind, I felt like I was dealing with the mute, deaf, dumb spirit. Like I couldn't even process. It's like I couldn't read something out loud. So I'm reading the scripture out loud, in my head. And then it went from one word to another word to 3 words to a whole sentence to a whole paragraph to a whole chapter, reading it out loud. It was like I was giving me my voice back. And so I got off social media for 6 months, and I was then still kind of struggling to drive to work. I was still dealing with anxiety really bad, feeling claustrophobic. The doctor was trying to put me on heart medication. I remember the voice of Abba say, throw that in the trash. There's nothing wrong with your heart. I didn't even take it. So he was even dealing with me with pharmakia at that time. If you don't know what pharmakia is, that's sorcery. That's pretty much where they get pharmacy from. That's medicine. Well, they've been teaching us lies about medicine. That ain't medicine. Our medicine come from the Arets. Okay. So me being a veteran, I had a whole black trash bag, not trash bag, but black lunchbox full of different medication. A lot of it was dealing with mental health and inflammation and gabapentin, which is supposed to help with your brain and all this other stuff. Imagine if I had took all that stuff all together. But anyway, on 2 different birth controls on top of that. So anyway, so then Abba introduced me to these 2 ladies, and they began to really help me understand about spiritual warfare. It scared me at first because I was like, are you serious? Like the adversary and dealing with that pain in your chest and stuff like that. It's like, bro, like this ain't cool. But they would prophesy, and then that's when I was having dreams even more. In this 6-month process with Abba, he was just speaking to me even more. I just started seeing myself speaking in my heavenly language, and I was like, I want my heavenly language now. Like I was just in that place. But I didn't receive my heavenly language until I didn't get ruach filled until I moved back to North Carolina, which I had prophesied. I said I'm probably more likely going to receive the ruach when I move back home, and I ended up receiving the ruach hakodesh in my sleep. I had my first encounter with Yahusha while I was in Washington State. I had my dream about him, and it was not the one that we've been told what he looked like. He actually came in his actual image, which is a melanated man looking like my complexion with locks in his hair. So before all this stuff came out, I had my first encounter with Yahusha Mashiach in 2019, and it was of the image he looks like in scripture. So when people are talking about it now of what he looks like, that's exactly what he looks like. He's melanated skin. He's not of fair skin or Caucasian with blonde hair, blue eyes, none of that. So I'm going to set the record straight there. So I moved back to North Carolina, received the ruach hakodesh with the evidence of speaking in tongues. And that's when Abba confirmed that my husband was my husband and that we was going to be getting married soon, but he wouldn't tell me when, because he, when he's like, but I'm not going to tell you, because Abba would not tell you, because he already know how your flesh is. And at that time I was still dealing with my flesh on some things, so he already knew, right? But I believed him, and I was excited because that let me know what he had showed me months ago about my husband, that it was not my flesh and it wasn't the adversary, but it was him that showed me. So, sure enough, 6 months later, me and my husband do get married. So what I'm trying to get here at is I tried to get in a ministry and it was very religious. And the moment I would step out in obedience, they were labeling it as rebellion. And I struggled back and forth because I put my trust in these leaders, not knowing that they was operating in error themselves. And I was actually operating in obedience. But because I was very new to this walk on a lot of things, I put all my trust in man versus in Yahuah. And so it took Abba to send a woman within the ministry that came in and just began to expose a lot of stuff done behind this ministry. She began to minister to me one-on-one, and she helped me break free from a lot of that. And that's when Abba had to move me and my husband to Colorado for me to get away from that control, that manipulation, domination, and control. And it was in Colorado where he told me his actual name, Yahusha and Yahuah. I was going deeper in the word, got more understanding about pharmakia, the food industry, and everything like that. And I began to change the way I began to eat. The process of being set apart, realizing that I was a creative, like me coming to life, prophesying more into people's life because I wasn't under this religious restriction. You know what I'm saying? But my foundation was still messed up. But it wasn't until I moved back home, that Abba began to deal with my foundation. And that is where he began to deal with me about wearing wigs and makeup and the whole process of, the way I would dress, which I wasn't a revealing person anyway, but, just not holding on to things old because he's doing a new thing, and the pagan holidays and stuff like that. So what I'm saying here, or what's in this message, is my walk has not been where man can magnify and say they are the ones that taught me certain things. I am where I am today, and I have what I have today because of the ruach hakodesh leading. And even in the times of disobedience, which I had to learn, where I got sat down and I had to learn from my consequence, I'm grateful that I went through the process of the wilderness. It's not as bad as what people make it seem like. When you go through the wilderness process, you will learn a lot of the errors of your ways. And if you go out here and do ministry and you call into ministry, you don't want what the enemy can say he got anything on you. You want to go out there with a clean slate. But what I'm saying is my life was not by the works of Torah. My life has been my belief in Abba Yahuah. Even when I was in the world, there'll be some things I was convicted of. I hadn't even read the word. But I knew there was a belief in me, or him telling me you're worth more than $5 and losing your life over $5 because you're at the wrong place at the wrong time. You know what I'm saying? There was a belief there that my husband was my husband, or something was on Plenty of Fish for me. You see what I'm saying? I was hearing his voice. And even though my flesh could have been like, and I was like, but I still did it anyway because I believed. And he confirmed that was him. You see what I'm saying? And so what I love about Abba is he knows how to convict you of sin even when you in the world. He will begin to order your steps. When he has called and chosen you, he knows how to order your steps to the right people, at the right place at the right time. And he knows how to take you through your process in the word. And so I was not planning on coming on here and giving a testimony, but maybe somebody needed to hear this today because it's so many camps out here and stuff like that talking about Torah this, Torah that. And when you're filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, the Old Testament is to help us to see the error of our ways. It's for unbelievers and sinners. I would have never known that the angel cards, tarot cards, the pendulums, the floor washes, all these things that I thought was protecting me was actually witchcraft until I read the Old Testament. And I did not hesitate throwing those things out. And as he began to take me deeper and deeper into his word and realizing, oh, shoot, these doctors, this medicine, the birth control, taking pictures like that. Like he started dealing with me. I had to work out my own deliverance. And Paul said, work out your own deliverance. You got to work out your own deliverance before you can call yourself trying to help somebody get delivered. You got to come out of the system first, like Musha did, before you call yourself delivering many. Because look how these celebrities are trying to expose an industry that they're still involved in. And what happens? They get killed because they got no protection. They'll say, oh, the Lord is my savior, but you still in it. You still a puppet. Actually, Satan still said he got legal rights. Right? And so what I'm saying is you got to have an understanding. You cannot do this walk without Old Testament. You got to have Old Testament to understand New Testament. Point blank straight. If somebody teaches you something different, they're incorrect. But you cannot get to the Father without Yahusha HaMashiach. You got to believe with your heart that he is the son of Abba Yahuah. Okay? He's the only way. And without him, you can't do nothing. You got to have the ruach. You got to even have the ruach to even be, to understand. First of all, to understand the word. Because if you're trying to read the word in carnal nature, it's going to be like parables. It's not going to make sense to you. But it's the ruach that gives you understandings of the mysteries of the word, the actual revelation of the word. And it progresses each season. You begin to understand a lot more. You get one revelation, but then you'll get a different revelation every time. Not saying that it's not Abba. Not saying that you're operating in a place of confusion. But you have beginner, intermediate, and then you got the advanced level. You know what I'm saying? But like he said, never despise humble beginnings. I don't despise my humble beginning whatsoever. I used to be like, why, y'all, why? But now I'm just like, you know what? It's worth it. Because now I'm in a place where I just went on my Facebook and I took all my old pictures off because I'm like, I don't live there anymore. That's not who I am. I'm choosing to forget the former things of old. But instead, my present and my future is bright. So why not be the example of what your future can be like when you're walking with the Most High Yahuwah, when you allow him to set you apart, right? And sometimes it can be lonely at sometimes, but Yahusha went through it. All the examples of what you're going to go through as a believer, a set apart one, is all through scripture. All the answers you're looking for is in the word. It's in the word. It's in your prayer time with him. Like I said, before I even picked up the word, he was already talking to me. And I didn't know I was responding to him. I didn't know him, but there came a time where I had a face-to-face encounter. And eventually, I will say this. The first time I moved back to North Carolina, after I had just gave my life back to and accepting Yahusha HaMashiach as my Adonai, he started calling me by my name, but he was using like my mom's voice, and I'm like, huh? And she was like, go back to your room. I didn't call you. And then he used my uncle. And then finally, when I read Samuel, I would say, speak, Yahuwah, for your servant is listening. He didn't even, he didn't even talk to me, but it was a test I went through. So I did go that. He called you by your name and you are his, right? So he was calling me by his name, by my name, to let me know that I was his, and, but I really want y'all to go and read Galatians chapter 3, because it talks about those that still want to live by the Torah, because when you're living by the Torah, it judges you, right? And it brings death. But however, those that are in belief, which is obedience, that's what brings you the promises. And it refers back to Abraham. That Abraham was a man of belief because he believed in Abba Yahuah. But remember, the Torah didn't exist, or wasn't written until after Abraham had already gone on. It didn't come, the Torah is used to get us in alignment, to train us, to get our hearts prepared to accept the Yahusha HaMashiach and receive the ruach HaKodesh, right? But it's not for us to live by it. It's for to see what happened with the children of Israel, which now I can read and get clarity, like what really happened, why are a certain bloodline of people receiving these curses. But I understand it's because they turned their back on Abba Yahuah. You know what I'm saying? So we can't blame necessarily the oppressors. We have to pretty much take accountability for ourselves, because these are things that's being taught consistently down the generation until someone says enough is enough of this. It's time to get rid of these household idols, like Gideon did, like Abraham did, like David, like Dawood did. Those deliverers, even down to Samson, even though Samson was an example of what happens, in Solomon, what happens when you disobey and allow the flesh to tempt you, their emotions. Solomon loved women. Samson loved women. And look what happened. The woman was their demise, had them to turn away from Abba Yahuah. So women, that goes to show you have a powerful influence over your husband. Either you're going to lift them up and help them turn back to Abba Yahuah, or you're going to tear them down and drive them more to the enemy. And if you got children, it's going to be a ripple effect of what they have seen. Right? So I want y'all to go read Galatians chapter 3, because Paul is literally talking to Galatians, is pretty much saying, did you receive the ruach by the works of the Torah? When clearly we know that we didn't receive the ruach by the Torah. We received the ruach by belief, right? But it's very important for you to understand why the Torah was written. But just know, if you try to live by the Torah, it brings the curses of death. Curses the man that hangs on the tree. Yahusha was impaled on the tree to be the grand atonement for the curses that came with breaking the laws of the Torah. So that means, that being said, if we're still living by the Torah, which we sin against Abba Yahuah some type of way, it's something very small, we wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be nobody existing on this planet right now. So I just want y'all to get that clear in your minds. But at the same time, I just wanted to come on here and share a little bit of my testimony, how Abba ordered my steps. I know it's kind of scrambled a little bit because I gave you all like little tidbits here and there, but I believe it's enough for you to understand. Yahusha met me at that well, and told me everything I did. And now I don't want to ever go back there. Like I said, I have no desire to want to look like the world or do the things of the world. I desire to do things in obedience and for the kingdom, right? My desire has become Abba Yahuah's desires, which I began to reflect and replicate on the arrests that become multiplication and increase and multiply, and it begins to expand territory and subdue and take land. You know what I'm saying? That's scripture. You know what I'm saying? And so, once again, allow Abba to take you through this process. If you're dealing with addiction, some of us have dealt with some form of addiction. Some people have dealt with the addiction of fantasy. Some people have dealt with the addiction of shopping, like I said. I was once addicted to pornography. I used to be into masturbation. All this. Am I going to be shameful about it? No. And because the door was open when I was fondled when I was a child. So the enemy does things and make you think is innocent until you begin to go into the Old Testament. And Abba takes you through that process. And it's just like, and your flesh is still going to try to tempt you. The enemy is still going to try to tempt you. But the more you read the word, the more you become stronger spiritually. That it's no longer a stronghold. That when you watch things on certain things, like I don't watch BET, but if somebody is watching something and I'm not going to sit there and watch it with you. I just can't. You may can watch it because you're not where I'm at, but I'm not about to watch that. I'll remove myself and go to a whole nother room. You know, you're just there because you're all about keeping yourself clean and pure. You're not trying to allow the enemy to say and let the accuser of the brethren go in the courts of the Shemia and talk about, oh, see, they watching that nasty stuff. I got legal rights. Nope. You want to keep your restraining order against Satan and his cohorts as strong and current as much as possible. But it's not going to happen in perfection of the Torah. It's your obedience and your belief in Abba, his word, and his instructions that he's given you. So, on that note, stay Baruch, stay hydrated, stay positive, stay close to the word, stay and keep a hold to Yahusha's garment. You know, lay on his bosom, rest in him. And let Abba Yahuah order your steps, guide you in all truth. Don't go out here searching for truth and all these different teachers out here, especially the ones that's now using the name of Yahuah and Yahusha, because they're still wolves in sheep clothing. So on that note, this was a little different, but it was well needed. So go and read Galatians chapter 3. And it's, like I said, about what happens of, the whole point of Yahusha, being impaled, but also you receive the promises because of the belief and being filled with the ruach versus the works by the Torah. And so I see y'all next time on Out the Box Kingdom. Talk with me, Out the Box Kingdom. Barak Shalom.